Jane, just bring us the latest details now. We've been wondering what might develop following the way that the votes went with that late night passage of legislation. Just bring us up to date now.
Yeah, well, what we can confirm and bring to our viewers right now is that Sussan Ley, the opposition leader, has accepted the resignations of 3 Nationals senators from her frontbench team, Bridget McKenzie, Ross Cadell and Susan McDonald. They've all offered to resign this morning, acknowledging that they have broken the rules of shadow cabinet, the convention of shadow cabinet solidarity. But basically they put the decision in Sussan Ley's court. So they all acknowledged they'd broken these rules last night in this late night vote, and they'd said that, they would resign if it came to that. And so then for hours we've been waiting to hear from the opposition leader herself, Sussan Ley, and the news just came through a moment ago that she has in fact accepted their resignations. Now, to go back a step, this is all to do with the government's hate crimes laws. Last night, just before midnight, the Senate passed the government's hate crimes laws. The Nationals pretty sensationally broke ranks with the Liberals to vote against the laws, but in doing so, they broke this convention that I spoke of about shadow cabinet solidarity. So on Sunday, the shadow cabinet met. It basically decided to back Labor's legislation with a few amendments. That means that the frontbenchers who are in that room are bound to vote the way of the shadow cabinet decision, and so they didn't do that last night, and now they're facing the consequences. Now, publicly, a few Liberal and Nationals have been, or mainly Nationals I should say, have been sort of advocating for the 3 senators to maintain their frontbench positions. They argued that there are extenuating circumstances because this legislation was rushed, they say. It was poorly drafted in the first instance, they claim. Therefore, the rules should be they should be a bit more lenient on this occasion. But it really was shaping up as a big test for Sussan Ley and her leadership, because previously she has very strongly insisted on the convention of maintaining cabinet solidarity. And she has now come out with a pretty, strong statement to say, I'm accepting the resignations of these 3 senators.
Now, Jane, just remind us again how all of this unfolded, because we have had a lot happening in the last 48 hours with pieces of legislation passing through the Parliament and lots of deals and positions being made. So just remind us again the steps that have been bringing us to this point.
Yeah, well, so I think it's fair to say on both sides it's been an incredibly messy process leading up to this point. The Prime Minister brought Parliament back early for this special 2-day sitting to deal with 2 bills that had been drafted in response to the Bondi terror attack on the 14th of December last year. One was to toughen the nation's gun laws. The other was to toughen hate speech and hate crimes laws. Now, over the course of the past 2 days, both bills have passed. The Nationals opposed the gun laws along with the broader coalition. But when it came to the hate speech or hate crimes laws, there was a split within the coalition. The Liberal Party agreed with amendments and ultimately backed the legislation. The Nationals in the lower house abstained from voting. In the upper house, they then voted against the laws. And so it's very process driven, but in this place, conventions really bind parties. And if you're a frontbench MP, you're basically saying that you will sign up to the rules of shadow cabinet. And so Sussan Ley today has pretty, strongly told her MPs that if you don't play by the rules, well, then you go. Now, it should be mentioned here, they're resigning from the front bench, not from the Senate. So they'll remain senators, but on the backbench now, where they are more free to vote as they wish. It's probably just worth reading out a little bit of the Sussan Ley statement that came through literally a minute before we came on air, where she's talking about Australians deserve moral clarity when confronting anti-Semitism, hate and extremism, and the Albanese government has failed to provide, in her words, that. Instead of careful, considered lawmaking, she says it put forward deeply flawed legislation. She goes on to say the coalition engaged constructively and in good faith. That shadow cabinet met on Sunday, examined the legislation and agreed on a clear path forward in the national interest. Now, that's obviously her political spin on what's happened here, but she's making it pretty clear that shadow cabinet did come to a decision on Sunday. That decision was effectively, these National senators effectively defied that decision that was made.